Break in here. Hello, how's everybody doing? Or whoever you are, whenever you are, wherever you will be, or just for myself. Either way. Um, yeah, today we are looking at X6 again, a couple different parts of it, talking about diaspora and difference. I wanted to try to, I haven't found it up yet, so there's no good smooth transition here, but many of you probably have heard over the last little bit about what's going on in Jackson uh, with the water, the crisis in the city, and I mean, we could make a connection between the diaspora of Africans in the Jackson area, but anyway, city of Jackson is having serious water crisis, mostly because of the way the state has chosen to intervene in some ways and chooses not to intervene in other ways. So I wanted to just pull up here a trying to find a good way to get this site up. Um, it's really hard to. Well, let me just do it this way. Let me just show you all this website. Um, and I know if some of you out there, I know some people who I am friends with or follow, on Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, whatever, are also connected somehow with the Poor People's Campaign, and they've been in Jackson today talking, and but I just wanted to draw your attention to this organization, Cooperation Jackson. Been in Jackson for a long time. Do you know a lot of work right in the community, working toward you know um, what you would call, I guess, um, self-sustained, cooperative efforts, where people can actually begin to take care of themselves, working on, ways to improve water catchment, themselves in the interim while they fight for the policy needed to change the situation and get either federal help or state help and all the things necessary. So if you are interested in that situation, you're wondering what you might be able to do. These folks are on the ground and have been in Jackson for a long time. They have, some. It's good to investigate them, all the way through. But they have a donate button right here on their page. So if you're interested in that situation, you want to do something, I would suggest Cooperation Jackson is the way to go. All right. Okay. Anyway, so that's I just want to start there. Many other issues we might get to around the world, but thinking about folks in need, people in our greater nation community who um, need some help. That's one I'll mention today. So anyway, we are back in. We're in Luke 6. We were here last week talking about this, talking about this a little bit, and here we go with a little bit more. Um, this is kind of the background story. Now, during those days when the disciples were increasing in number, the Hellenists complained against the Hebrews because their widows were being neglected in the daily distribution of food. And the 12 called together the whole community of the disciples and said, "It is not right that we should neglect the word of God in order to wait on tables. Therefore, brothers and sisters, select from among yourselves 7 men of good standing, full of the Spirit and of wisdom, whom we may appoint to this task, while we, for our part, will devote ourselves to prayer and to serving the word." Um, it goes on and on. They selected 7 folks to help, to be a part of this and to be of service. And it's, this, the word of God continued to spread, and the number of disciples increased greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests became obedient to the faith. Um, Tells the story of one of them being arrested. We'll see how far we get with that. Looking at the Jennings piece. Again, we see this situation kind of cycle through all of the books of scripture, from Old Covenant, New Covenant. Society at this time, and most agrarian, or you know early city um, kind of civilizations, this issue of the widows. Well, I know Jennings will speak about it. There's the patriarchal agrarian system. Um, Widows were a very vulnerable group of people in that setting, and so again and again the issue comes up. You know, for those who are in power, or those who are seeking to helping to create a solid community that helps everyone. What do you do about the most vulnerable? Um, and so let's head over to the. So Jennings is going to characterize this situation under the rubric, or the term, diaspora, which is quite interesting, um, I think. But you did see in the community how um, there were people from all over the place coming together, and the widows in this particular story are Hellenists, or Greek speaking perhaps, who have joined the community, um, and so there's this conglomeration. Let's see. So this is a little bit about where he's going with this idea of diaspora. Diaspora was both of the body and of place, of exile and return, of sameness and difference, fear and hope. For Israel, diaspora existence was faithful existence shaped in unrelenting determination to follow the way of Israel's God in lands far from the land of Israel in the time of Jerusalem's foreign occupation. Um, It says diaspora people are always on edge because they know the stakes. They understand that life together as a people is not a given. It must be won again and again against those alien forces that would undermine it, drain it of life, and leave it sickly and dying. Those who come to Jerusalem were diaspora, of different tongues and cultural knowledges, but of same commitment against the threats to Israel's life. So it's it is certainly interesting to think about this text, and to think about this early community, um, in terms of diaspora, and then think about um, how we consider diaspora communities today, um, because I think there's a sense with diaspora of um, a disconnection from land and place, um, where you are kind of seeking a way to either make a new home, or make a new place to be. Um, Jennings talks about this in his other book about colonialism, about you know, the arrival of the the arrival of Christianity, the arrival of Europeans in South America and Africa, of the displacement of people, the taking away, kind of shifting of identity from being very place attached, very um, geographically formed, with the land, the plants, the animals. That there was, that's where identity was that was how people define themselves, by the place that they were. I mean, you can think of this with indigenous folks, in America. You can think of it in North America. You can think of it, in Africa. Um, and one of the things he talks about is how this is part of the shaping of of a um, of uh, a racial understanding based on color differences, that remove from place, remove from the context that defined you. People were given a kind of given a new identity um, based on skin color, more or less. That's part of Jennings' argument, as I understand it, in the Christian imagination. But here we have here we have this idea of diaspora in this text. um, and I don't know, it's interesting. You know Probably for myself, and maybe many others, people coming from my social uh, position don't think about the idea of diaspora or a diaspora community very much. So maybe I'm not the best one um, to bring it up, or to go into it. But it'd be interesting to read or to study out of diaspora communities, and connect them with what's being said here in this text. Let's see. Um, and Mark said he'd be about 15 minutes late, so he might have some more to to add into this as well. Let me show you. Let me continue on with this part of the text here. Luke is here exposing us to more than the overwhelming realities of survival and support in patriarchal agrarian cultures where widows and orphans hang on only by threads of mercy. He is also showing a connection. The apostles joined to diaspora, and the new order joined to the existing order of survival. 7 people of exile and return, of hope and fear, will be elected to serve. He is also showing a connection. The apostles joined to diaspora, and the new order joined to the existing order of survival. I probably should have taken a little more time to think about that. Um, but I mean, the simplest thing to say, that we don't want to lose again in all of our kind of reading and studying of what the Spirit might be doing in our midst, is this, just the simple weaving together of this order of survival, with the new order or new creation that the Spirit is trying to bring about. Um, Even in weaving together this diaspora community, I think that's, we're thinking about how there's a set of commonalities um, in diaspora, but there's also a set of differences, and then there is the the overall commonality of us of us all trying to survive, and maybe even more, um, together, and that it was important to these people, not only to continue to try to spread the word, spread the the good news, um, maybe in terms that we might understand, to organize and to share imagination about what could be and was coming to be in their understanding, um, and bringing people together to continue that work, but also to make sure that people um, were were surviving, we're being able to be reproduced, we're being able to be um, that social reproduction was happening, that people could survive and eat some of the simple things. Let's, that's not necessary. Let's see. Well, I tell you what, I don't. And then this is a quote that kind of comes in the section about Stephen's um, about Stephen being imprisoned, and it says, I don't know if you can see that or not. The church was born in the tight space between faith and fear, and forever lives in that space. Only the Holy Spirit keeps that space from collapsing in on us. The church was born in a tight space between faith and fear, and forever lives in that space. Only the Holy Spirit keeps that space from collapsing in on us. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Like I said, whenever Mark jumps in, he might have more to say about that section about diaspora. Um, and the next little section that I wanted to get to a little bit today has to do with um, Philip and the story of Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch, which just to summarize, uh, I'll turn this. The disciples are dispersed, and Luke has set a pattern to, saying that they'll first be in Judea, Samaria, and then ever widening circles they'll expand to. And this is a story of Philip along the road, and the chariot passes, and the Ethiopian eunuch is reading from the book of Isaiah, the prophecies of Isaiah, and Philip asks if he understands what he's reading, and then they get into a conversation. The eunuch has to be baptized, and there is a joining, as as Jennings will say. But just see what just read some of what Jennings has to say here. Philip must move forward at the demand of the Lord. This is not precise direction, but Philip's obedience is clear, and that is all God needs to direct disciples: imprecise direction and clear obedience. His destination is a desert road, that place that is no place. It is the in-between space that constitutes diaspora. Diaspora is road-embedded life, born of old or fresh memories of migration, mobility, transition, upheaval, and hope. Roads are about survival, moving from one place to the next and searching for life possibilities, or at least running from the forces of death. Luke has already shown us a God in Jesus who's comfortable with roads, whose feet touch the good earth, never searching for home or despising in itineracy, because his life redefined both home and away. Yeah, I think this is a difficult concept for us. I think we run into this situation where the example of Jesus clearly is not necessarily one that everyone can follow. Being an itinerant, being out on the road in a constant um, place of diaspora. That in some ways it's clear that community needs to be formed, places need to be um, recreated, places need to be um, renewed, and communities need to be about the business or being about the work, the labor of seeing flourishing happen, seeing, for lack of a better word, the desires of the creator come to be. And so it is difficult in that regard, but I think there's something that must be it's always kind of something that hangs over our heads the um, about how Jesus is always um, is on the move, and I think this comfortable with roads whose feet touch the good earth, never searching for home or despising itineracy, because his life redefined both home and away. Yeah, that's that's interesting. Um, I think we struggle. I think we struggle again with that concept of home, uh, and what that means. So that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, this is obviously a returning theme with Jennings. Now, at the command of the Spirit, the reading and the interpretation of Holy Word must always bend toward the communal, and it must ultimately issue in a joining, um, where they join each other on the chariot, they join each other in the reading of Scripture, they join each other in study, they join each other in um, making sense. They join each other in their in their differences, in their different locations, their different everything. And uses Gloria Ansaldua's term of a borderland moment. He says this is what Gloria Ansaldua would call a borderland moment, where people of profound difference enter a new possibility of life together in a shared intimate space and a new shared identity. Hey, Mark.
Hey, let me turn this volume up. I can't hear nothing.
How's it going?
Oh, hanging in there. What's going on?
Oh, not much. I'm just, rambling through some things,
Yeah.
doing what I can here. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Go ahead.
I just kind of, I went through that first little part of the diaspora thing and then kind of moved on to the Philip story, which kind of brings back in a lot of the diaspora stuff again too. But,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, we're just right at, I'm not sure what in the book, this is probably, I'm not sure where this. Yeah, it's probably 83. About page 83 in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm using the course, the Kindle version. I
Oh,
don't
right, right, right. Yeah, so
doesn't
who
show
knows
doesn't show
who
page
knows
doesn't
what
show
page
page
number
number.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Kindle version. Yeah, yeah.
No, and I was just this is just saying this borderland moment where people with profound difference enter a new possibility of life together in a shared intimate space and a new shared identity. Talking about, oh, just a second, let me uh, sometimes I don't even remember how to do this. Huh. Oh, there it is. I knew it was there somewhere. I turn those alerts off.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the question he asks, what do you do to protect your people and your faith from a threat to their existence? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to compare and contrast, um, I mean, today, certainly we are not threatened like they were threatened in terms of the existence of empire. Um, I guess the only analogy I can think of in terms of that would be um, maybe what the Holocaust or the black church, how they were threatened by the constant racial attacks. But
Right.
other than that, I mean, here in 2022, the church doesn't really face no
Right.
existential threats.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I know you were off earlier, but I was just this didn't have anything to do with what you're, with the text necessarily, but I just kind of um, felt like adding it in there. I was just talking about what's going on in Jackson, with the water situation. You know,
Okay,
um,
I missed that.
you know,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, we may not. I mean, I think this is the hard thing. I think that and I realize that it's difficult, um, because obviously not everybody there is maybe part of the church. I'm sure there's people atheists, church members,
Yeah.
Muslims or whatever, but in a way, there's a concerted effort to, um, if not eliminate the people of that city, at least to take them to a place of submission or whatever,
Yeah.
and
When I look at
disease.
that, yeah, when I look at that situation, I mean, that's just an issue of a community not mattering in terms of
Right,
the issue of infrastructure.
right,
Same thing in Flint.
yeah,
Um, I mean, the same thing. I mean, same thing in a lot of places. I was thinking about, when I was growing up in Philadelphia, um, I spent 6 or 7 years of my life in South Philly, and the apartment complex that my mom and my brother and I we lived at. It started off as a housing community for folks who worked at a shipyard in Philadelphia, and then it ended up evolving really into a low income housing community. But that was right next to the refineries.
right,
I mean, you had Atlantic Richfield and I can't remember Gulf. They were all over there. And I
yeah,
mean, you get off 95 or 291 to take the Penrose Bridge across into that
yeah,
part of Philadelphia, but you couldn't. you knew where you were at, you know,
yeah,
by the smell, you know.
yeah,
So I just
yeah,
think about years and years of what kind of impact does that have on
yeah,
people physically, emotionally, psychologically to have that type of ongoing pollution. I mean, it's the same thing as Flint, same thing as Jackson, a
right,
community. It's environmental racism.
right, yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, it seems, and it's clearly just, obviously, I mean, all of the situations are easy to point out, like you
Yeah.
say, the environmental racism,
Yeah.
and it just seems, but I mean, like when it comes to water, I mean, it's almost hard not to think of it as, a form of genocide. I mean, like you're really saying like, look, you know, this thing that is important and essential to your life will not be provided to you. you know,
Right.
it will, it
You're not worth spending the, I don't know, millions of dollars to
right,
upgrade that infrastructure so people can have safe water.
right, right,
Yeah. And it's not, this is what, when we talk about this issue of climate change, I was talking with Leonard yesterday. And I said my issue with climate change is, and these issues, who gets mitigated and who doesn't,
right,
which comes down to dollars and politics.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
you know, yeah. Who gets mitigated and who doesn't?
right. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I guess that's to say in terms of the text and in terms of what you're saying is that it seems to me like there's a disposition that people of the church are supposed to have toward humanity, you know, um, and particularly toward those who are being oppressed, you know, like the widows like
Yeah,
the widows in this
yeah,
particular story,
right.
you
Where the
know,
needs weren't being met. Yeah,
right, where even if people are not in the church, everyone is part of, everyone is part of the people of God,
yeah,
in some way, and it's kind of difficult, it's getting to the point where it's really hard because the people who call themselves Christians are the ones in the state house, denying the funds, you know,
right.
the ones in the state house seeking to, I mean, basically in Jackson, it seems, the idea is if they could just get people to leave, then they could come back and have the city for themselves again.
Yeah, yeah.
The white
I mean,
folks.
and what's crazy, I think that's the capital. That's the capital
Yeah,
city.
yeah, yeah. No, it's the
Yeah.
capital.
So it's not like it's the some small. This is the capital of the state.
Right, right. Well, I mean, and this is an issue in Richmond, the same as it is, in other capitals, that
Yeah.
so much of the city has no tax base because
Right.
the state government buildings don't get taxed, the city government buildings don't get taxed, all
Mhm.
these places, the courthouse, the da da da, there's just, there's so much of there's. I mean, there was a study that I saw about Richmond, basically saying how much of the actual, square miles of the city are actually in a place, can actually be part of the tax base for the
Yeah.
city itself. And it's a pretty small, it's a pretty small amount,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you take into account all the times that, the city itself gives away taxes so that somebody will come and build a building there,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
and then all of a
Right.
sudden you
Yeah.
realize part of your problem is, and of course, in a place like Mississippi, the state, well, we have the same problem here, in Wisconsin, that the state government doesn't want to give money to the cities, um, all the state folks that come from, all the rural areas, they don't want to they don't
Yeah.
want to empower the cities, because
Yeah.
uh, you know, so yeah, that sort of stuff is I just think that there's something about that, what you were talking about with the how do you protect your communities, how do you
Right.
protect
How do
um,
we protect those who are most vulnerable? I mean, the same thing. Well, with this whole shipping these shipping folks to Boston.
right,
What's so crazy about all this that and we said many times, 73% of those folks working on the farm feeding us are these folk.
Right.
It's not you and I out there
Right.
picking the corn and picking the beans and plants.
Right.
It's these are the folk that are putting the food on our table.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, that are
Yeah.
working undocumented, means they have no legal protection against
Right.
harsh working conditions or unfair labor practices. But we count on these people every day when we go to Food Lion or Publix or wherever you
Right.
go to shop at.
Yeah.
That's where the food's coming from.
Yeah. 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 I do. I mean, it is interesting. I think it's, I mean, in a way, I don't know. I don't want to be sympathetic with DeSantis at all, but I think that, I think the sending them to Martha's Vineyard, you know, there is something about, the people of Martha's Vineyard should have been ready to welcome and, and accept people. They should have had their, they should have had their liberal whatever all prepared to,
Yeah, well,
the Obamas can probably house about 50 people in there on all the land they got now.
yeah.
I don't remember how big that place is, but it's a
Yeah.
nice little plot they got there.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, without
I guess
belittling all the human lives involved, I
Yeah.
just
I guess we just don't. We throw out all those Old Testament texts between the stranger, how important it is
right.
to care for the stranger, the foreign. I mean, I guess all that's
Yeah.
that's all null and void, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it's I mean, it's interesting. I don't, I guess part of the problem part of the thing is that if we don't see what we don't see the clear lines drawn, perhaps like they were at this time in a certain way. But if you think about it, if we did take a stand on these issues on a very just straight scriptural ground of welcoming strangers, and if we did stand up for the oppressed people and that sort of thing, what would it look like?
Yeah.
We would have to prepare ourselves at the same time for defending ourselves
Yeah.
in some way.
And I guess what's important about this is we think about the effects of climate change. We're probably going to see migrations of folk. I mean, you see migrations of folk when you have what's going to happen in Florida. Folks going to have to evacuate certain parts of Florida for the storms coming up. And as we we know one of the issues behind folks leaving Latin America is issues of climate change.
Right.
So we're going to see migrations of folks. So what is the first world's reaction to these migrations of folk?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think one of the things that was unique about the movie The Day After Tomorrow, where they had folks leaving the United States going to Mexico to escape
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I think that again, in some ways, it's the kind of right-wing, gun-toting, whatever kind of folks that are actually preparing and imagining that day. They're the ones getting ready for the apocalypse or whatever.
Yeah.
And their vision of what that's going to look like is terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, what their plan is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that in some real way, I mean, like there's a lot to, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of work for people who have a different vision to do, because the people, the people who are moving and working right now are making bad plans for us.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They don't have anything good. They don't have anything good in store for us.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and unfortunately, most of the people that are either our elected officials or wanting to be our elected officials are, just hoping that the people who are paying them are going to let them in their, bubble dome or whatever. You know, I mean, they're not really that concerned about the rest
Yeah.
of us. They're
Yeah.
just hoping that if they do the will of these people, that they're going to let them up on their hill or whatever,
Yeah.
or in their spaceship or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Leonard always talks about that. The trying to flee the planet. With this all these with Bezos and doing that
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think some people, even if they're not planning on fleeing the planet, they're planning on being, setting themselves up in a way that they'll be, you know, the least impacted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's hard to find people who are really trying to do something about it. You know, I mean, when you think
Yeah.
about it,
It
you know,
is.
when,
I mean,
you know,
it's like folks don't understand that everybody's got to do their part, and it's first of all, I was trying to convince people that it is a reality.
right,
Because a lot of people still don't not believe that in climate change as a real reality, and folks
right,
don't see that everybody has a role to play in terms of making a difference.
yeah,
You know, and folks still just don't want to accept, responsibility. That's why
yeah,
I keep on saying we need to go back and it's in the church. We need to really go back and look at those texts, especially those the texts from
right,
Genesis, and really break them down from a uh, and really break them down not from a Western perspective, but from an ancient Near East perspective, and really do some real serious exegesis on those texts.
right.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, unfortunately, I mean, part of the situation is that pretty much it seems like people don't believe anything that they don't hear on the on the news. I mean, and
Yeah,
there's no sustained talk of solutions, or potential things that can be done
yeah,
on any of the, beyond the point of every once in a while, the more liberal side of the media will tell you if you vote for the Democrats, they're more likely to do something than the other people will,
yeah,
but they don't tell you what they're planning to do.
yeah.
You know what I
Find
mean? And then it gets to the point where the mainstream media is bringing up are trying to poke holes in the more progressive side's ideas. Right?
yeah,
They're on TV saying they're kooks or whatever. I
yeah.
mean, so it's like I think
And, and,
people
and
people
nobody
just
wants to
don't wake up.
nobody wants to sacrifice. It was I think last week at the United Nations there was a
Yeah.
proposal to have a tax those countries that are contributing more to help
Right.
pay for those other countries
Yeah.
that are not major contributors but are being greatly impacted. Which
Right.
is interesting thought, but
Yeah.
nobody wants to sacrifice. I mean, this
No.
thing is about sacrifice. Nobody wants to change their lifestyle.
Well, I mean, and of course, the United States basically just uses it as a political game. I mean,
Yeah,
of course, the person they think is the most responsible is China or whoever
yeah.
the boogeyman is now.
Bogeyman is at the time, right?
But yeah, but I mean, obviously there are people and there are groups of people who are trying to create solutions, trying to create things, um, in little small ways. It's just that we don't ever hear about,
Yeah,
we don't ever hear about them.
yeah,
Uh, in fact, um, I put up on the earlier when I was talking about Jackson, I put up this, there's a group there called Cooperation Jackson that's been there for a long time that does a
okay,
lot of, food sovereignty, cooperative businesses, all kinds of just self-sustaining, self-empowered, you
Yeah.
know, stuff that looks at, that looks at all the things, looks at the environment, looks at issues of race, looks at all these things. I mean, there's people in place doing it. It's just that you're not going to hear about them on the,
Hear about it, right? Yeah,
you're not
mainstream
going to
media.
hear about them unless you kind of go and dig into it.
Yeah.
But I guess we could end on a happy note here. This he's this is just he's talking about the end of kind of the end of that story with the so it says, too often the eunuch has been interpreted simply as an instrument, as a necessary linchpin for evangelization and mission into the unknown parts of the world. Such ways of reading this story miss the joy that fills this scene and reflect a vision of humanity as nothing more than tools and a vision of God that has forgotten the extravagance of divine love. God has come forward the eunuch precisely in his difference and exactly in the complexities of his life. He matters not because he is close to worldly power and thus a more appealing pawn. He simply matters, and he is being brought close. He will no longer be far from home.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember I heard Otis Moss preach a sermon about the Ethiopian eunuch, and what he talked about was that this is a person who is really who does not fit into our
Right.
nice space categories in terms of his sexuality.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said that that we want to tend the box folks in and label folks in, and we have to and we need to really apologize for that.
Right.
That we've injured some folks. So we have with our conceptions of what we think people should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that it's just the way that Jennings, comes back to this, over and over again is just, the people enter the story because God has the desire for the people, and like he says, wherever they are, whatever, whatever people think about them, whatever it is, whatever the situation is, they're welcomed in, they're brought in,
They're brought in, right? They're part of the community. They're part of the family. Yeah.
And if I mean, and yeah, I don't even know how to. And in a way, and without that being any kind of, assimilation into, being something that they different than they are, I mean,
Yeah.
the
that what they bring, they're not asked to give up. We're not asking folks. They're not asked to give up their identity.
Mm-hmm.
They're not asked to give up who they are. That what they bring is considered a gift, and this just adds to the richness of the community.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, well, maybe this might, he talked, this is when the Ethiopian eunuch calls out to be, to be baptized. It says, faith found the water. Faith will always find the water. The immediacy of this blessed event is beautiful. It is no precedent for catechetical. It sets no precedent for catechetical procedure. Rather, it establishes the necessary hunger for the water and spirit. The eunuch wants God as much as God wants him.
Mm-hmm.
They will wait no longer for each other. I think part of it is that I think that we should understand is that, the people that we think that we're welcoming in, God is already in their life.
Right. Right.
God has already embraced them more fully
Right.
than we ever can. So
Right.
we are kind of it's not as if we are drawing people in. We are being expanded to include,
that.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and literally being expanded in somehow us having to grow in order to include,
Yeah.
people that we're not maybe necessarily ready to fully include, in
Yeah.
our own limitations. But
And I think he brings out an important point that that people who are drawn to communities of faith. I mean, we sometimes forget that God, they already know, they may already know God,
right,
and have have a deep sense of spirituality, and
right,
they bring that with them. It's not like it's not like that we have to pour that into them. They already
right,
bring that.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And certainly this brother from Ethiopia and that background, he brought that with him.
right, right, yeah. There's something bringing him to read what
Yeah.
he's reading,
Yeah.
to be where he is,
Yeah.
the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there will be no correct or proper image of a disciple, no bodily model by which to pattern himself, and no one to begin a process of erasure or eradication of his differences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, yeah. Oh wow, I forgot there's this whole other section. Well, yeah,
I haven't
I,
gotten that
I
far
think
yet.
we just, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's a pretty interesting little section there. I would, I'd recommend it. Just take a look at it.
Okay.
Of
You haven't
course,
got.
we always run into I think we never get to cover everything
Yeah.
that's available there, but yeah. And then I think the next week, next week is this. Next week is I think just part of chapter 9.
Okay.
It just starts out. There's no rationale for killing that remains intact in the presence of God. So,
So we're chapter 9 of Luke next week.
yeah, I think it's 9:1 through 19 or something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it's maybe is it the stoning of Stephen? Maybe.
So 9 1 to 19. That disrupting
Yeah,
life. That disrupting life
yeah,
piece. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Trying to see. All right.
You talk with Marcy, how she coming with for oars.
Yeah, I talked to her a little bit. She said it was not a bad text, and she's,
Okay.
so I think it'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course,
Okay.
you're not supposed to talk about it too much, So
Okay.
she was just telling me that she found, like, I sent her a couple commentaries,
Okay.
for her to borrow, and she
How
said,
long does this process take?
I mean, I think you get like a few days to look over the text and and then write. You kind of have to write a sermon, but you also have to write kind of like a little background that shows kind of what you took away from your study of the text.
Okay.
I don't really know what you would call it. I'm sure they taught us what to call
Exegetical
it in seminary.
exposition. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever seen the journal interpretation that comes
Yeah.
out from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the journal interpretation, there's like these things called between the text and the sermon.
Okay.
Like if you look in kind of near the back of them, like it'll have a text from the lectionary, and it'll say, it'll give you kind of like a little 4 or 5 paragraph kind of background and
Okay.
ideas about how to use it. It's kind of like that. That's kind of what
Okay.
you're supposed to do, and then you write a little sermon. So
7 a while. Okay. Okay.
yeah, but yeah, it should be. I'm sure she'll do great. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure she will. Yeah.
I think they're nerve-wracking, but it's just one of those things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be interested to hear later on what the text was,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting if they did Matthew 25, because that's a whole big emphasis of the Presbyterian Church right now. That
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, call themselves Matthew 25 churches from the, the scene of the sheep and the goats with, whenever you gave someone water, it was me or whatever.
Okay. Okay.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we'll see. We'll see. That'll be interesting. I think
That's
so. I
interesting.
think she should be done next week. So she
Okay.
shouldn't have
Okay.
any excuse.
All right. We won't get on it too bad, but okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so then I think, then I think a little bit like there's the 1 through 19a, and then I think that there's another little part about 19b through 30 is that the diaspora in faith and fear. So I think
Okay.
that was, I think maybe I just had all of 9 maybe for
Okay.
to
Okay.
see. That's about, let's see, that's about 10 pages in the book, about 9
Okay.
pages in the book.
Okay.
So that's
Start
not
looking
too
for
bad.
that.
I
Start
mean,
looking for that.
we probably won't get further than the first 2 pages, but we
And
can be ambitious about it.
are you still thinking about changing up for Lent and doing something a little different? I mean, not for Lent, for Advent. Lent.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking it might be good to switch over to the Matthew to, um, you know, go along with the lectionary readings and see if we might get some folks who are trying to preach or teach on things that we can help out with looking at it. But
Okay. Matthew.
that
So
might just be,
Matthew's mostly the lectionary text for this Advent.
Advent and the whole next year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I
So
need to find a commentary for Matthew, but maybe
yeah,
you think that one this series is okay?
it may be. I don't know. I really don't know much about it. I don't.
Okay.
I know that I actually had how did I know that person who's the I know the person who I was in something with the person who wrote it. I was in some kind of, I can't remember now what it was.
Okay.
Oh, I was for a couple weeks a year for 3 years, I think it was, when I was in seminary as a part of this science and religion
Okay.
um, colloquium, and
Okay.
she was one of the people in it. That Anna Case Winters. She's up at McCormick
Okay. Okay. All right.
Seminary.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't know what she, like what her angle, what I mean, what her angle is on it, what it would be, but it
Okay.
could be interesting. Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
I was trying to think of, there's another one. Let me see if I can. Oh yeah, there's a commentary. Let me see if I can share this. I mean, I probably could send it to you just as easy, but there's a commentary in the, and sorry everyone for putting up the Amazon link, but but there's this in the Brazos commentary. Matthew is Stanley Hauerwas, who was a professor at Duke, theological ethics professor,
Okay.
kind of a I don't know, like, I don't know, a little bit of a, you can't invite him to your church to speak because he's got a little bit of a foul mouth, but uh, he's yeah, I mean, interesting guy. He kind of had a I don't know what you would call the yeah, he just kind of came out of that kind of politics of Jesus, theological ethics.
What's his name?
Stanley Hauerwas.
Okay. I can't. I found it on Amazon. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's that I remember reading parts of that one. It's probably pretty interesting, and I think the other one I was telling you about too is it's more of a commentary, like is oh, that's not anything. That's not it. Interesting. Oh, you get the Thanos glove. I don't know how that came up into the mix, but that's funny, isn't it? Somehow they got the
Mm.
spelling everything wrong too for some reason. What are they giving me here? This is so strange. Well, anyway, that's not it. Huh. Anyway, it's a commentary called Matthew at the Margins, that has a more like like a anti-imperial kind of take on
Oh,
things.
Matthew. It's called Matthew at the Margins.
Yeah, and it's Warren Carter is the guy's name.
Matthew at the Margins.
Yeah. So, yeah, those might, yeah. Yeah, Hauerwas probably wouldn't be as have the same well, of course, I don't think anyone does as good as Jennings, but
Yeah.
he might have some interesting interesting stuff in there.
Okay.
He's quite a character, but yeah. All right, well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate
All
it.
right, man. And I
I'm
guess we'll see.
hoping my dinner's ready. I got
Yeah, I
started.
got some salad
I
here.
sent,
Yeah. That's we need to be in prayer for these people in Florida. I think they said the guy father said that this could be an unprecedented disaster for Tampa. So
oh man,
yeah,
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 yeah. Well, and I know went through Puerto Rico pretty bad too, as well.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
All right,
All right, man.
I will talk to you later.
All right. See you next week.
Yep. All right. Bye
All
bye.
right.